Great. Well, Al, thank you for having us, and we're thrilled to be here at the People Analytics and People at Work conference. Sad we're not there with everyone in the real world, but it's really cool to be able to have this global platform and talk about employee engagement. And what we're here to chat about today are a couple of things. One is to announce a new company that Dan and I have just launched. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But the main focus of our conversation today is to really talk about why employee engagement is not enough to help us understand the employee experience in today's turbulent world. The last speaker, it was really great to hear how organizations are navigating through, one of the most incredible times we've had in the history of America. But what we want to do is kind of bring a very crisp, specific strategy to help organizations really think about, as we like to say, beyond engagement and a more radical approach to thinking about the employee experience. So there's three things we're going to cover in our conversation today. We're going to talk a little bit about the current environment that we live and work in now and the psychological effects it's having on organizations and its people. And given these turbulent times, we're going to explain why we feel that the traditional employee engagement framework and approach and strategy just isn't enough. And we need to think about what we call the whole person experience as a framework and approach to better understand employee experiences. And then thirdly, we're going to share with you kind of a three-part strategic strategy that organizations can consider as they think about reimagining their employee experience design strategies. But first, some introductions. My name is Patrick Riley. I am a co-founder of Radicl, and Dan and I are thrilled to announce that we just launched Radicl literally 5 days ago, the end of last week. And Radicl, we are an HR advisory and technology company that believes that inspired change is possible. That's our mission, and we hope that through this short presentation today, you can understand where we're coming from. Dan and I have been passionately working in the employee engagement and experience industry for over 20 years. We were co-founders of a company called Modern Survey, which was a pioneer in enterprise software as a service employee engagement surveys and measurement and lifecycle and analytics measurement. Modern Survey was acquired by Aon Hewitt in 2016, and Dan and I were involved with a lot of the integration into that business. So we're incredibly passionate about this, but we, again, feel like we're at this unique moment where we feel like there's a new approach and a framework that needs to be taken in order to address the world that we live in. Dan, I'll let you jump in.
Great, thanks, Pat, and thanks, Al, for the intro. And there could not be a better platform than the PAFOW Global Conference to have our coming out party. So again, I'm Dan Riley, and I'm gonna start with a little joke here. So I had a little bit of a beard yesterday, and when I showed up this morning, I was so proud to tell my older brother that I had shaved. And he said, I thought something was different. I could see all these lines. So so this is the joys of working with your brother and starting the business. I love him to death, but I had to share that because it was actually pretty funny. So I have dimmed the lights in the room, trying to hide those lines. But again, really proud to be here, and looking forward to hopefully leave you with some provocative thinking, some ideas, and hopefully some inspiration, most importantly, because we all need that, and some optimism. We all need that as well. So I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to start with a little bit. I'm an optimist, but I'm going to start with a little bit of a reality check. So the world needs our attention and care more than ever before. And this is obviously the theme that we're going to hear throughout this conference. But the turbulence we face can be felt all around us. And I want to run through some of this, not because you all don't know and don't experience this every day or don't know what's going on, but because we as a society sometimes are too quick to move on, right? And we're too quick to forget before real, inspired, sustainable change takes hold. So again, I am a self-proclaimed optimist, but I want to preface this by saying I do believe and I do have incredible hope. So with this, we are experiencing a polarized society, right, where extreme viewpoints and opinions surround us. And unfortunately, science and data doesn't always prevail. We live with fear and distraction over love and optimism. And I want to repeat that because I think that's really important. We live and breathe right now, unfortunately, fear and distraction over love and optimism. We are continuing to fight for social and racial justice, working to make true, lasting change that is sustainable. And we have a lot of work to do there. We're in the middle of a global pandemic that we're not yet in control of. This is affecting our personal lives. This is affecting our work lives, our futures. As you all have seen data, mental health and stress continues to rise across families and communities and organizations as the vision of our future is uncertain, and that creates an incredible amount of stress, right? And across businesses, we're seeing and have seen furloughs, reductions, reduced hours, forcing organizations to reimagine their business literally overnight. So we have work to do, and we got to do it together, and we have to hold each other accountable. But with that, to add a little optimism, we have been working to meet the moment. And I'm speaking to a community, and I know many of you and many people on the call that are making such an impact, and we need to call that out, right? So we've truly been using data for good in so many ways during these turbulent times. And some examples, we've been using health data, right, to help contain and control the spread of COVID. And we're creating incredible models to help us understand this and be predictive and keep us safe, right? We've been creating sophisticated data modeling to navigate through dynamic changes in business, right? When can we start bringing people back into the workforce, right? Really being proactive with this. We've been redesigning services to mitigate health and safety challenges. And I think most importantly, across all of this, we've been seeing courageous acts of leadership, right? And teamwork to get us through these challenges. The best of us can be woken up during times of crisis and uncertainty. And I think we've been seeing incredible acts of putting people first at all cost. And I sort of was thinking about this the other day, and I think a new leader has risen. And what I mean by this is, and what I define this as is leaders that think about how can I help you leaders, right? So these are leaders who ask, how can I help you versus how can you help me, right? They're more concerned with the individual's well-being over timelines. They are prepared to roll up their sleeves and jump in. So while I painted a bit of a grim reality check in the intro, incredible acts of generosity and humility are on display every day. But with all this said, and we'll repeat this over and over again, the world still needs our attention. And this is a commitment, this is a new mindset, and this is a movement. And this movement and challenge really is ultimately going to be fueled with creativity, inspiration, and experimentation. So with that, we want to now shift and we want to discuss the tools and strategies of the past and present and why they're not going to meet the future, and then discuss what's necessary to prepare us for the future in a very radical way, of course. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to my older bearded brother, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Dan. I think you do look actually younger though without the beard, so I will give you that. But picking up on what Dan was saying, why the community and by community I mean everyone who's in this conference and just the decades of work that's come before this moment. While that work has been incredible, employee engagement has been an example, such a phenomenal model to help organizations, and then broader analytics work is just incredible of how we're able to, again, provide insights to organizations. But we feel like it's just not enough to truly understand what we're calling the whole person experience. Dan and I, we've been, when we started Modern Survey in the year 2000, I mean, this is hard to believe, but the first thing we did is we helped organizations move the surveying process from paper to the web, right? And that was our first big use case. But at that time, employee satisfaction was still sort of the mindset, where we wanted to understand how satisfied employees were with their organizations. Then we shifted to employee engagement, a few years later, to better understand the psychological connection that organization or people are having with their organizations, and that became a lot more relevant, and still is very, very relevant. And then we expanded our capabilities into really employee lifecycle measurement. So from hiring all the way through to exit, how can we better understand at these different measurement points what's happening comprehensively with employees over a life cycle. And then we started to measure more and more often, right? So we were, again, pioneers in the idea of pulse surveying and continuous listening, finding ways to get little bits of information as we go to try and kind of understand better. And the idea was, hey, the more and more data we get, hopefully the more and more insights we get. But unfortunately, as it turned out, that wasn't always the case. And then if you think of where we are now, in 2020, going through these remarkable changes, the contexts have changed so much that we feel that employee engagement as a concept is not enough. So what do we mean by that? So through COVID, especially, or initially, the boundaries between work and life became removed, and contexts that used to be really separate became very quickly merged. And even for people who aren't working at home, their sense of work, their psychology when going to work, whether it's a healthcare worker or someone that is in the service industry, needs to be, in a place where you're actually interfacing with people. There's safety concerns. There's a different kind of stress. So with all these different things in mind, the traditional idea of trying to understand, hey, what does that psychological safety look like for a person at their workplace? It just doesn't work anymore. So, and through this, we feel that organizations now have this kind of social contract and obligation to move beyond the day and the job at hand, to think much more comprehensively around the individual. People are dealing with stresses and emerging of work and home like they never have before. And there's sort of two frameworks and contexts that we bring to this as we start to define it. Number one is what we call kind of the home versus office context. So it's where are you, right, as a person, and then what behaviors manifest within each of those different contexts. And the other framework is more of a comprehensive idea across kind of career, life, and well-being. So these, excuse me, for a second, off. So these different contexts or frameworks become critical for us to start with this new model. And as we start working with this model, we need to realize that the data is going to be less and less of what used to be quantitative, and is going to be much more qualitative. And so as we start to move forward and think about how to be able to both not only design for this, but measure this, our work is going to be increasingly more focused on unstructured data. So the R&D efforts at Radicl, as we move into our technology work to support this, is going to be much more focused on natural language processing, machine learning, and AI, et cetera. So in summary, employee engagement, while it's been incredibly helpful and it's been a phenomenal model, and it's still relevant, we need to really move beyond it and start to think about that kind of whole person experience, and start to think about these new frameworks to kind of measure and understand what's happening with employees in this new world. So how do we bring this all together in a comprehensive strategy? Dan, if you can move to the next slide. There's sort of three constructs or three approaches that we think are helpful to think about this. And the first is the whole person that we just described. And it's really making sure that as you start to think about your frameworks and models, as you starting to think about the experiences of people at your organization, you've got to broaden it out, and you've got to think within these different environments and different contexts. And that's kind of first and foremost. And then secondly, we need to think about this bigger idea of community. So for us to be successful with this, when we think about community, there's one, it's all the practitioners, it's the people who are on this conference today, the experts in this field. And the second part of community are organizations and all the people that work at those organizations. And we need to think about that community. And thirdly, it's what I would describe as sort of the technology or vendor community. And it's very important that there's so many incredible upstart providers and specialists. We need to find a way to be able to quickly deploy all of those different specialists towards solutions that are going to meet organizations where they need help and support to be able to understand the employee experience. And through this idea of community and through this idea of technological infrastructure that can support this work, then we're in a position to really build repeatable and high quality insights. And that's another big focus area for us as we move into the future, which is to make it as repeatable and as high quality and effortless as possible for organizations to be able to gain insights to understand, how well our experience is happening for employees against these strategies and really against these frameworks. So this is the approach we're bringing. Is Dan and I think about Radicl and the path forward. Again, all the work we've done to get to where we are has been incredible, but we think we really need to kind of broaden out the perspective. We need this kind of fresh framework. We need to think really as a community around this, and then we need to be able to move toward quality insights in the future. And this is the focus area that we want to bring to this important work in the future. Dan, I'll let you take it from here into the final slide.
Great, thanks, Pat. So let me start by just saying, and we all know this, but as a reminder, real change is meant to be uncomfortable, right? So if we feel a sense of comfort as we're trying to move through change, we're not doing enough, right? So a movement is necessary to overcome inertia. And again, this is one thing that we really believe at Radicl is there's an obligation, right, for organizations to take action. So they may do better for the humans who work for them. And before I go into closing, let me just pick up on something Pat said. We've spent the last 20 years working in the employee engagement space. And I want to be really clear that there's been some incredible work done there. So I am not going to say we need to blow it up, we need to tear it down. I'm going to say we need to remodel it. We have to respect how far we've come and the great work that's been done to date. But we also have to recognize it's not enough and a change is necessary. And I think remodeling is a key word here. Thinking about what motivates an employee just within the framework of a day at work is not enough, right? So an employee giving feedback, quantitative feedback on, I plan to hang around, I believe in senior leadership, I'm going to recommend this company, and I like my manager. And again, I'm simplifying here. I know there's a lot that goes into engagement, but that's not enough. And employees want to be heard. They want to be a part of something that's making a real impact. They want to be a part of an organization that's making a difference. They want to be a part of an organization that is thinking about and really living sustainability and really living and believing in racial justice and social justice. This is so important. And if you don't start to shift this mindset, employee engagement will crumble, right? It's not enough just to say when I show up at work and if everything's good, I'm going to be a happy person. There's so much more at stake here. So to quickly summarize, and I know we're running a little late, so Al, you'll be happy to know I'm trying to get us back on time here. So we're coming up on 2. We live in challenging times, and I want to highlight that there's been some inspirational work done helping us to meet the moment, but we have to prepare for the future, and there is more work to be done, a lot more work to be done. And like I said a moment ago, what motivates people is changing. In fact, it has changed, right? And so these models that we've used, these traditional HR models of the past, I don't want to just disregard them, but we have to move on from them, and we have to reimagine outside of the context of the way HR has done it in the past. And it's no offense to the amazing work that's been done in HR, but we have to continue to evolve. And again, I've lived in that world for 20 years. So myself, I'm constantly thinking every day, how can I do something differently? How can I do something better? So we need to move on from, for example, using conversational data over 6-point Likert scales, right? The way people connect and the way people communicate is very different and much more realistic in measuring engagement than clicking on I strongly agree or I strongly disagree on a question about I plan to hang around at this company, right? So we need to think outside of these standard models. And like Pat said, it's truly looking to understand the whole person. This requires listening more. This requires trusting more. And this requires allowing authenticity and the true self to shine every day. So our call to action today goes out to everyone, and especially this community, because this community is a community that can make a real difference and a real impact. So let's tackle this together, and let's challenge each other, and let's hold each other accountable. Again, as we know, we're quick to move on from things sometimes from a society. So let's be better than that. Let's make a difference together, and let's always put people first. So in the spirit of community and conversation, please reach out to us. You can contact us on LinkedIn. You can we put our phone number there. You can call us. You can go to radicl.work. Keep in mind it's spelled with a CL, not AL. Let's reach out. Let's ideate. Let's share. Your ideas are what's going to make the difference. We can't do this by ourselves. You can't do it by yourselves. It's going to take all of us working together as one machine to really make sustainable long-term change. So with that, Al, I hand the mic back to you, and thank you for allowing us to present.
Oh, absolutely, of course. And congratulations on making that happen. And if you can bring them back real quick, because I have a couple questions for them before we move on. There they are. Is that we talked earlier in the day about people analytics professionals, leaders specifically thinking of themselves as product managers. And having worked with large enterprises over the years, there's been an evolution. I wrote an article a few years ago, People on 3.0, where 3.0 was actually productizing what we're doing. So it's scalable, sustainable, all those things. So what I'm hearing from you two, and congratulations again on forming Radicl, is the case that you can partner with companies to realize a new vision, not taking an engagement and trying to fit it into a place where it's not appropriate. That, hey, if you're really interested in measuring, analyzing, and helping elevate a whole person, given remote work, given the distractions at home life, then you can create a solution in partnering with you that's going to be immensely appropriate for your intentions, not trying to kind of fit into some other's box. Is that a fair way to summarize where you are as a firm and how you'd like to work with others moving forward?
Yeah, I'll jump in first, Dan, and then please continue on. But 100%, Al, it's this idea of starting with really understanding, as we're working with an organization, what they're trying to do, and the way you described it, to sort of think of our client as a product manager, or someone in an organization as a product manager, is a great way to think about it. And then the other part of what we want to be able to do from a technology perspective is to make it easier to deliver these products as they can specifically meet the need of an organization. That's the vision that we have from a technology perspective. So it really is kind of leading with the consulting and then supporting with solutioning that really meets the need for a client.
Outstanding. Dan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just one thing to add to that. The reason we're diving back into this, into the deep waters, is, again, we do believe real change can be made. Sometimes I like to say what we're not, right? And what we're not is a company that's going to tweak an engagement model, that's going to tweak a pulse surveying strategy. That's not enough, right? So there are great vendors out there that do that type of work. Right? We're looking to really bring in transformational, inspirational change, starting at this much larger lens of the individual. And absolutely, Al, we believe in ecosystem. We believe in partnership. And so this really is a movement. This is a movement where we want to leverage the best of what so many companies are out there are doing. We believe real change happens at a smaller entity. Across smaller entities, brilliant ideas come from startups. So we want to work with all the brilliant minds and do this together, because we're passionate about our mission statement, and we believe in it.
Well, again, congratulations. I selfishly am glad that you've re-entered and gotten into the fray, because obviously you were successful with Modern Survey. You've taken a very virtuous stance over the years, thinking about the employee experience. Now you're talking about the whole person and measuring and analyzing and elevating that as well. So, again, congratulations. Thanks for contributing to the event, and look forward to following up with both of you very soon. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Al.
Thank you, Al. See ya.